So, hello to anyone who is listening. This is our newest episode of the podcast of, arguing about bullshit things just for the fun of it. Is this the first one we've done since movie fights came back, or was that the last one? I think that was the last one.
Yeah, it's the last one, yeah.
So we have some good topics for today, because in the last podcast we had 2 blind fights, and of course in one of them I had to pitch something. So we decided for this podcast we're going to have 2 pitch topics, but we're both going to be prepared for them. So what we have in store for today is the best movie of 2017, because, obviously the Oscars happened a couple weeks ago, and, we saw most of the big movies, so thought we'd argue that. The most Oscar bait movie possible. Now this is kind of a blind fight where we both knew what this topic was, but we don't know what the other person's argument is, so we're going to be fighting blind against their argument, but we both prepared probably a pretty good argument for that. But then we have the team other than the Astros, because the Astros are the obvious favorite this year. The team other than the Astros that's most likely to win the World Series. Then pitch the next historical Total War game. And then, because one of our favorite questions ever was the trashiest hard rock song of the 70s and 80s, we have the trashiest hard rock song since the year 1990. And trust me, that one's gonna be bad.
Mm-hmm.
In all of the best ways possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, the opening argument of the podcast, we have the best movie of 2017, and I'll start with that because my pick for the best movie of 2017, and it was nominated for 5 Oscars, sadly didn't win any of them, it was robbed, it's not going to hold up well that this movie did not win any Oscars, and that is Lady Bird. Lady Bird is a movie about a character named Christine McPherson. She calls herself Lady Bird. She's a senior in high school. She's does a lot of things, but she also doesn't do a lot of things. Like, she wants to be a theater nerd. She wants to, do all of these things and, be a high school student, but she doesn't really know what to do, and she lives in Sacramento, and hates that she lives in Sacramento, but also kind of secretly loves Sacramento at the same time. And the reason I think Lady Bird is such a good movie, other than it's a universal story that anybody can relate to, because it's a universal story about growing up and being an 18-year-old and not really knowing what you're going to do with your life. If you're a millennial, like the both of us are, it's pretty much a beat for beat. This is exactly what it was like to grow up as a millennial. The only thing that is missing, because Greta Gerwig is older than both of us, we're in the middle. We're in the middle of the millennial generation. She was right at the beginning, so it doesn't have the influence of the internet. Which, if you were making a movie about growing up when we did, of graduating in the late 2000s, early 2010s, then the internet would be a huge influence. Whereas in the early 2000s, it hadn't become a huge influence yet. It's a beat for beat, this is what it was like to grow up as a millennial. And when you're watching the movie, it is one of those very rare instances where you don't feel like you're watching a movie. You feel like you are actually watching the life of the characters that are on the screen, and you are totally engaged with what's going on, and you feel like you're there. And it's really rare for a movie to do that, and in my opinion, this is the only movie this year where I felt like that. So that's why it was what I think is the best movie of 2017 and my favorite movie of 2017.
Okay, well, yeah, so my 2 favorite movies of 2017 were The Big Sick and Lady Bird, so, this is going to be kind of a tough argument, because...
And to also put my cards on the table, The Big Sick was one of my 5 favorite movies of the year, too, so I also really liked The Big Sick.
Yeah, so, it's hard to knock Lady Bird, but The Big Sick was my favorite movie of 2017. It's written by comedian Kumail Nanjiani and his wife Emily V. Gordon, and it's about their courtship and romance and then also about their families. And basically what happens is the 2 of them start dating, and things go fine for a while, and they have some rough spots as well, and then all of a sudden Emily comes down with this sickness out of nowhere and is put in a medically induced coma, and it's this crisis, this kind of turning point where Kumail has to decide, oh, like, how do I respond to this? I think I really love this woman. And then also he has to negotiate dealing with her parents, who don't really trust him at first, but then grow to love him, and dealing with his parents, who want him to marry a good Muslim Pakistani woman, and it takes them a really long time to accept his choices, that he wants to do something else. So you've got a lot of great comedy, a lot of great performances, kind of a romantic comedy, but a lot more than that. And what I think it really, why it connects with me so much, is because it's so much about, being a person, like, in your 20s and 30s, that starting period of your life, and, dealing with your life choices going forward, and then also like dealing with your parents. I'm an only kid, so I had, my parents are maybe even a bigger part of my life than they are for most people, and because I don't have any brothers and sisters, and so, it's Kumail dealing with Emily's parents and trying to become a part of that family, and dealing with his own parents and trying to make that family work. And great performances by the parents on both sides. Holly Hunter, who plays Emily's mom, I think she should have got a Best Supporting Actress nomination. And Ray Romano, who plays Emily's dad, it's like, wow, he can do that. Like, I had no idea. And of course, the actors that play Kumail's parents are great, and Kumail and Zoe Kazan, who plays Emily, are great too. So it's just all around a really fun movie that also has a lot more depth to it than your typical romantic comedy, because it's so much more than that.
I don't really have much bad to say about The Big Sick. Like, something that I can say that was kind of bothersome sometimes is one of the big story points of The Big Sick is all of these dates that his parents, Kumail's parents, set him up on with these Pakistani women to try to have it be an arranged marriage. That plays as really awkward sometimes, and I get that was the whole point of that, but on a couple of occasions that took me out of the movie a little bit of like, okay, we have another one of these. This is kind of awkward. I get why this is here. This totally needs to be in here because this is a very important part of the story, but I'm not really digging this part of the movie. The part of the movie I was really into was like, okay, Kumail realizes that he screwed up with Emily, and then this thing happens, and he does all of this stuff because he realizes that he actually cares about her, and it's a really interesting story in that regard, because something that should be brought up is right before she falls into the coma, and the whole time she's in the coma, right before that, she had a huge fight because she did not know about all of the arranged dates that Kumail's parents were setting him up on. And that caused a huge fight and a huge rift. And I think part of the reason why Kumail was so committed to her in the hospital is because he felt kind of responsible for what had happened. And I'm not knocking the movie for that. That's a big part of the story, and that works. But I just thought that sometimes the arranged dates were really awkward and kind of took me out of the movie for a couple of minutes. Whereas I didn't have anything like that in Lady Bird. Like, I was completely in the whole time. And like the stuff that could or should have been awkward just wasn't. It's like all the times Lady Bird has the fights with her mother, it's like, I watched my mom and my sister have that same fight at least 3 times. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, yeah, at the very beginning when they get in the fight, Lady Bird jumps out of the car, like, I could totally, but my sister at 18, like, she never did that, but that's something I wouldn't put it past her to have done. Like, it when I was watching The Big Sick, I knew the whole time that I was watching a movie, and even though it was a movie based on a real story, which is a really crazy true story when you think about it, I mean, they took some liberties with it because that fight never happened.
Right.
And there were never, like, any there was never any of that shit. So they took some liberties with it, but you have to take some liberties with it to tell a story like that.
Yeah.
Because if they just told the story beat for beat of like, oh, she ended up in the hospital and this happened, then that wouldn't be as interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But having the storyline of like he has to win her back after this fight that they had beforehand makes it a good movie, or makes it an interesting story, and it makes that ending where he sees her in the bar and she heckles him again, and it calls back to the beginning of the movie like their first meeting. Like, it makes that pay off.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my biggest complaint about The Big Sick is that there were parts of the movie where I was kind of taken out of what was going on, and even though I really enjoyed it, like, because of that, it falls a little bit farther down my list than it otherwise would.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't have any problem with that, of course, and, you know, I'm fighting for it being the best, and that's part of the reason, is because I didn't have anything that took me out of the movie, and I think, like, you know, even with those dates, it's like, yeah, it's a little awkward, and, you know, usually I don't like awkward comedy, but what makes this work, as opposed to a lot of awkward comedy that isn't as well done, is that you like these people so much, and you know where they're coming from, so that it's like you feel the pain they feel, and you're rooting for them, as opposed to just, why are you doing this? You know, it's like, oh, I totally get what's going on here, and I want this to work, and it's just so funny how they're trying and just can't make it work. And I don't know. I mean, the problem is, like, with this argument for me is like, yeah, I don't really have much of anything to knock Lady Bird on. It's just like, I liked both of these movies. I just would put like Big Sick 1A and Lady Bird like 1AAB, and you know, as far as which one I like better, you know, like, I think, you know, when I started watching Lady Bird, like, you know, there were a few things at the beginning, you know, where they're just kind of setting up this high school storyline where it's like, oh, this feels like a little bit cute or contrived and stuff, but then, like, the farther into the movie it got, the more it, like, was like, oh, this is, like, genuine, real stuff that's going on, and you just get really sucked into it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's hard to, like, I just don't really have anything to say to knock it. I just wanted to talk about how The Big Sick's great, and it was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, but it probably should also been nominated for Best Picture and Best Supporting Actress, because it was fucking great. And they had a spot open for the Best Picture nominee, and, like, also a couple movies that probably didn't deserve to be in that category.
Yeah, like, it deserved it more than The Post, and it deserved it more than Darkest Hour. Like, that was kind of a joke. Yeah, I would say I don't really have anything else to knock The Big Sick, because The Big Sick, when I did my rankings for my favorite movies of the year, The Big Sick came in at 5th, and, like, the top 5 are the movies I really, really enjoyed, and then everything below that is kind of like, I enjoyed this, but it didn't quite crack that I really enjoyed this movie to the point where I want to watch this again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Lady Bird was number 1. I went to go see Lady Bird twice in theaters and loved it both times. Like, I drug my mom to it, saying, like, you have to watch this. Like, you lived this movie. You have to go see this. And she really enjoyed it. My number 2 was Logan. Only other movie I went to see twice in theaters. I even fucking bought Logan on iTunes and then bought the Blu-ray so I could have the noir version. Like, Logan was my favorite movie of the year pretty much until I saw Lady Bird in January.
Mm-hmm.
Then Get Out, because Get Out's incredible. You should watch Get Out. It's incredible. The Disaster Artist, which is really fun. I wasn't expecting to like that movie as much as I did. I haven't seen The Room, but I really liked The Disaster Artist, and then The Big Sick. So I don't really have much more negative to say about The Big Sick, because I really liked it. There were some things I didn't like in the movie, but overall, I really enjoyed the movie. So, I don't know. We can call this now if you want to, because I don't think either of us is going to be able to get much of a foothold here.
Okay.
This was more just talk about stuff we really liked.
Exactly. I mean, I think, you know, like, we can call it a tie, and then if this podcast, if we're still tied at the end, I'd say maybe we could throw it to you, just because I think you're passion for Lady Bird is a little higher than mine for The Big Sick, but since you named your top 5 movies, I'll just go ahead and name mine. So I'd say my top 4 for me was like the category, like you said, of I thought these were like real standouts, and then 5 was like I just like I like this movie, but I'm not comparing it to the other 4. So 5, I'd say The Last Jedi, because it was my favorite of the big blockbuster movies I saw last year, and I thought they did some really interesting things with the story and the characters. Number 4 was Logan. It was an incredible movie, really emotional and great performances. The over the top violence took me out of the movie a few times. That's why I didn't rank it higher. Number 3, and very close with Logan, was Blade Runner 2049. Absolutely beautiful movie and thought-provoking. And yeah, I watched the original Blade Runner, and it's the kind of thing where it's like, oh, if I'd been seeing this when it came out, it would have been incredible. But since like I'd already heard a bunch about it, it's like it's good, but it didn't make as much of an impact. Whereas I thought this had more fleshed out and interesting characters and storylines to complement the big themes that both movies explored. Number 2, Lady Bird, and number 1, The Big Sick, but those two are like neck and neck. So yeah, those are like the 2 movies from this year that'll really stand out for me, going like for a long time.
I think there's a chance that if the stories aren't out there about James Franco, he gets nominated for Best Actor for The Disaster Artist, because part of the reason that movie is so good is because he completely sold that performance, and that is an incredibly high degree of difficulty performance, because if he sucks, then that movie is horrible, and it's hard for a good actor to play someone acting badly, and he does it so convincingly that you 100% believe that he is Tommy Wiseau the whole time, and if you don't believe that, then that movie doesn't work.
Yeah.
So just based on the degree of difficulty and how much he pulled it off, he probably should have been nominated for Best Actor. I totally understand why he wasn't, if the rumors had anything to do with it because of the moment we're in Hollywood. I totally understand that, but just on the merits of the performance alone, I think he should have been there.
Yeah. And meanwhile, like Casey Affleck is like, just squeaked in under the line.
Yeah, no shit. God. Casey Affleck probably deserved that Oscar because he was incredible in Manchester by the Sea, but if that movie comes out this year, he's not even nominated.
Yeah.
Alright, so now, because we were talking about the Oscars, we'll move to topic number 2. So for anyone keeping score, we are going to call that one a tie for the time being.
Yeah.
The most Oscar bait movie. And since I went first on the first one, I'll let you go first on this one. What do you got?
Okay, so yeah, I was thinking about this, and I started with an idea that wasn't entirely serious, but then like as I went on, I fleshed it out to make it like more of something that would actually be a good Oscar-worthy movie. So I was thinking about different things, like what are some of the timeless things that Hollywood likes, like the love letter to cinema type thing. What are some of the things that are in right now, like
you're talking about like your La La Lands and your Chicagos and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then also like what are some of the things that right now we're making a conscious effort to make movies that give more of a voice to women and African Americans. We haven't gotten so much to Asian Americans yet. They're still waiting their turn, but and then also like some of the performers who either are up and coming and people would like to recognize them, or are classic performers that people like. So my pitch for a movie is it's going to be set in the 1960s, probably based off of like a memoir or something, I don't know. And then it's going to the star is going to be a young African American girl, and I'm going to say that this movie I'm going to have the director be Ava DuVernay, because I think after she got snubbed for Selma, like everyone is like, oh, that was like we really should have nominated her for Best Director, and we can't wait to have another film by her that's actually worthy of that nomination because she's got the talent. And then we're gonna bring in some of the
and because I'm hearing bad things about A Wrinkle in Time so far.
yeah, and so I think she's gonna want to go back because like all her movies before Wrinkle in Time got really good reception. Like Selma was the only other big one, but I think she's, you know, it's likely that she's gonna say, you know, hey, this big budget experiment didn't work as well. I want to go back to like a smaller prestige pick that's more my comfort zone, and then I'm gonna borrow some of the Wrinkle in Time cast too, because I Gugu Mbatha-Raw, I hear lots of great things about her. So and then Storm Reid was like the first person that came to mind for the young girl. So I'm just gonna pick her too because I'm sure she's good. I haven't seen Wrinkle in Time and don't have any intention to, but you never know. So this movie is going to be set in 1960s Los Angeles, and so Storm Reid's character is going to be the central character, and it's going to show her coming of age story, and then also the struggles of her mother, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, in the, you know, as a poor African American woman who has to make it on her own after her husband, played by another guy that everyone likes right now, Sterling K. Brown, is sent off to jail on some trumped up BS charges by the racist police. And so the mother gets a job at like a classic beautiful movie palace in Los Angeles, and you know, she's like working as a caretaker or something, and you know, trying to make ends meet. And then because she's a single mother, during the summer she brings her daughter, played by Storm Reid, to the movie palace while she's working, and Storm Reid's character forms a relationship with the projectionist, who's an elderly lesbian spinster played by Meryl Streep. And
because Meryl Streep had to be in both of our movies.
Exactly, because that way you're guaranteed at least one Oscar nomination no matter what. And
Yep.
and so Meryl Streep, you know, is just this charming, warm, wonderful person, and you know, introduces this young girl to the magic of cinema, and we see lots of great stuff from the great movies of the time, of the mid 20th century. And you know, of course, since it's you know, we're talking girl power and African American representation, anytime there's like a great female lead or an African American character in the movie, we're going to make a big deal of it, and it's going to be wonderful. And then also the soundtrack is going to be a lot of diegetic music from both the films and the music of the time period, which is going to really appeal to the Academy voters who are attached to that time period. And also it's just going to sound nice because it's good music from that time. And then there's also going to be, over the end credits, there'll be a very inspirational song by Beyonce featuring Common, which will be nominated for Best Original Song.
I like it. You've laid out a good story, but I think you missed a very central point of an Oscar bait movie, and that an Oscar bait movie doesn't have to actually work and get nominated for any Oscars. It just has to have all of the things that would be classically considered Oscar bait. So what I'm going for right now, I don't know if this movie would actually get nominated for any Academy Awards, but this has all of the Oscar bait things. And that is, it's a biopic. it's relevant to the times. Okay, so right now we live in a really weird political time where Trump is president and there's all this weird shit going on with Russia. It feels like it feels almost Cold War like. So I'm gonna go for something that we haven't seen, a very famous incident in the Cold War, and your 2020 Best Picture winner, directed by Steven Spielberg. We have The Rosenbergs, and this is a biopic of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were both convicted of espionage and convicted and executed of espionage for giving the secrets to the atomic bomb to the Soviet Union. And, because it had to happen, Ethel will be played by Meryl Streep, because if you have Meryl Streep in your movie, you're right, you're guaranteed to get one Oscar nomination. Now, this one might be kind of hard because he said he's retired, but who would be better to play Julius Rosenberg than Daniel Day-Lewis? I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed a second Oscar nomination if you have Daniel Day-Lewis in your movie. Why would you, if you're Spielberg and you're making this biopic, why would you not get the two best actors of all time to play your leads? You are pretty much guaranteed. Like, this movie could be the first movie since As Good as It Gets to win the Oscars for Best Actor and Best Actress in the same movie. Now, the reason this is a biopic is because biopics are huge at the Oscars. Biopics are like the way you get nominated for an acting Oscar. And I have statistics. Since the year 2000, 11 of the 18 Academy Awards for Best Actor have gone to people for performances in biopics. So that's over 50%. 8 of the 18 Oscars for Best Actress have gone to people for their performances in biopics. So that's a little under 50%. Since 2010, 19 of the 40 nominations for Best Actor have been for performances in biopics, so that's a little under 50%. And 12 of the 40 nominations for Best Actress have been for performances in biopics, so that's about 25%. Or, yeah. Is that about 25%? It's actually a little bit more than that. So, it's like 28 or 29%, I think. But the easiest way to get nominated for an Academy Award is to become a famous historical person. Like, that is how Gary Oldman won Best Actor this year. Daniel Day-Lewis probably gave a better performance as Reynolds Woodcock in Phantom Thread, but because Gary Oldman became Winston Churchill on screen, the Academy loves to reward that. So the easiest way to get an acting performance nominated for an Oscar is to have a well-made biopic. And it's Steven Spielberg, so it's going to be some heavy-handed morality boner masturbation fest, and the Academy loves that kind of shit. Look at The Post. The Post, it's okay, but it's not that great of a movie, but because it was a timely movie about what's going on now, it got nominated for Best Picture anyway, even though it didn't really deserve it, and Meryl Streep got nominated for Best Actress anyway, even though she didn't really deserve it. So the Oscar bait movie doesn't necessarily have to win. It doesn't necessarily have to even succeed to get nominated for Oscars. It just needs to have all of the things that the Academy usually loses their mind for. And a biopic with Spielberg, Meryl Streep, and Daniel Day-Lewis about something socially relevant is everything that the Academy just loves.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is a great pitch, and, of course, I'm not really sure if we're ready for Daniel Day-Lewis and his extreme method acting to give away additional military secrets to the Russians, but it's okay. We already have that happening in other channels, so it would, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, I think both these movies, like, I think your movie would be the one that, like, old Academy voters get behind and are like, this is everything we think movies should be. And it gets nominated for a bunch of shit, and then, like, all the younger people are like, why the fuck is this nominated? And then mine is the one where it's like, all the Academy voters get behind it, and they're like, this is like what kids want now, but, like, hits a lot of the stuff we like too. And then, like, it's kind of the media darling, even though there's, like, a small resistance of young white men who can't really say anything to people who aren't also young white men who are like, this is a little bit smarmy. But
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. My movie would have no media backlash. People would love my movie. Your movie would probably get some ridiculous media backlash because it would probably win like 6 or 7 Golden Globes like La La Land did, and then everyone would say, but that movie's not as good as people are telling me it is. Like, that's the problem with those love letter to Hollywood movies, is the second the backlash starts, there's no coming back from it. It's like La La Land, it looked like La La Land was going to win everything after the Golden Globes and after a lot of the other Guild Awards last year. But the backlash started, and the Academy listened to the backlash, and it went against it. So I think your movie, yes, it's interesting for Oscar bait, and it is one of those movies that sounds like it would get nominated for a lot of Oscars, but it would probably end up being really divisive the way a lot of those movies become. Once they become like these darlings, everyone starts picking it apart and starts hating it. Like, part of the argument for how Shape of Water was going to lose Best Picture to Get Out was that people started picking apart Shape of Water, and like what Dan said on Screen Junkies, it's become the fish banging movie, and that's going to be the narrative around it, and that's how it's going to lose. So I feel like that could happen with your movie, whereas I don't see that happening with my movie, because biopics just have a good track record, and I would rather bet on the good track record of a biopic than have the possibility for some love letter to Hollywood movie to become hated and have that shift what's going to happen to a movie that more people can get behind.
yeah, well, the thing is, I think your movie is like, just because of the two leads you have, like the best picture, like, or I mean, the best actor and best actress are like, it doesn't matter what those two play, they're gonna get nominated. Like, they could do like a condom commercial and get nominated, and and so. But I think, like, it kind of depends, because, there's some...
I'm just thinking of that condom commercial and laughing really hard.
But, it depends, because, like, I think there's some biopic movies or real-life movies, like, that are well done enough that there really isn't anything you can say against them. But then there's ones like, I think The Post, like... It had like almost a preemptive backlash of people were just like, oh god, this just checks all the boxes and isn't that good. Like, we know it's gonna get nominated for a lot of shit, but it would be really disappointed if it won, because it just really isn't that good. So I don't know, it just kind of depends where your movie falls. And I think the problem is that, like, I think if you maybe picked a more trendy director, it would have a better chance, whereas, like, I think with Steven Spielberg, it's like, because it has the heavy-handed morality shit, and because a lot, his movies over the last 10 or 15 years have been so much weaker, like, I just don't think it's like, I think it has all the Oscar bait things, yes, but like, I think it's just gonna, like, from the start be handicapped by the, come on, you can do Spielberg. You can do better, Spielberg. Like, we this doesn't deserve to be rewarded. What are you doing? Whereas my movie, I think, like Ava DuVernay, that is like, I mean, she's been a darling of Hollywood for like the last couple years. She has a French sounding last name, which French sounding last names are really in right now with like Denis Villeneuve and Damien Chazelle, and it's either that or Mexicans. And so, like, I think she's got, like, she's going to produce a movie that's going to be better, and people are going to be like, okay, this has everything we want in it, and it's only, like, it doesn't matter what the backlash is, because the love is going to be too great.
It doesn't matter if it should get rewarded. It matters that it will get rewarded. The Academy still loves Spielberg movies. Like, if you look at the recent Spielberg movies, pretty much all of his big dramas in the last 15 years have been nominated for Best Picture and have gotten multiple Academy Award nominations, like Munich, War Horse, Lincoln, The Post. You'll have to check that. I think the only recent Spielberg movie that has been kind of a flop that he directed was the BFG, because that was Spielberg just kind of sleepwalking through it. The Post could have been a better movie. The reason The Post didn't really work is because he rushed the movie, and he made the movie in like 8 months because he thought, this is a politically relevant movie, I need to get this out right now, and he didn't take his time with it. Because he just wanted to get it out there for people to see it because he had his thing to say. And because of that, it felt rushed and it felt heavy-handed. So I'm saying if you give Spielberg a couple of years to make this really good, interesting movie, then you'll get back to the really good, interesting Spielberg. Like, yes, Lincoln does have a little bit of heavy-handed morality in it, but you didn't see that until The Post. Like, I only see that heavy-handed morality in Lincoln because of The Post. If I had watched Lincoln before that, I wouldn't have noticed that was there. So I think Spielberg, he's still enough of an Academy darling that if every time he makes a good movie, that movie gets rewarded. And The Post is a good movie. Like, it's not as good as you would expect with what he had to work with, but it's still a good movie. It just feels rushed. So it makes sense that it got rewarded with a couple of nominations, but it would have been disappointing if it was like, oh, Spielberg's getting nominated for Best Director, Tom Hanks is getting nominated for Best Actor, Bob Odenkirk probably could have deserved a nomination for Best Supporting Actor because he was pretty good in that. I think with Spielberg, you have a more reliable bet on someone that the Academy likes to reward than you do with Ava DuVernay, and because of that, I think the Academy, which still, even though it's becoming a lot more diverse, is still a lot of old white dudes, is a lot more likely to reward a well-done Spielberg movie than a well-done Ava DuVernay movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they'd both do well, but let's see. I mean, I don't really know where else to go with this, but I guess we should just list off which awards we're gonna get nominated for. So I totally punted on Best Actor because I'm all about female empowerment here. So we've got Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, maybe 2 Best Supporting Actress nominees. Probably because Meryl Streep, and then it depends whether they nominate Storm Reed as the lead or say Gugu Mbatha-Raw is. But if they could nominate all 3 of them conceivably, and then Best Adapted Screenplay, because I'm totally basing this on a memoir, so it is a little bit of a biopic, but not like in the we know who this person is way. And then let's see, I'm sure we'll get like cinematography and set design, costume design, all that stuff, and then of course Best Original Song, because you just have to have comment at the Oscars ceremony anymore, and everyone wants to see Beyonce, so.
Okay, so I think my movie will get nominated for Best Picture, definitely. Best Director for Spielberg. I mean, just lock it down. Best Actor and Best Actress. You're right. Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis could be in a condom commercial. They get nominated for that, so just lock that down. There's a chance that there could be a supporting actor nomination by like someone else in the movie, like maybe like whoever's playing the Soviet who they give their information to. Maybe you get Stuhlbarg in there and he puts in a really good performance and he sneaks in for Best Supporting Actor. I don't know. There's a chance for the supporting actor love. It'll get nominated in the screenplay category. I don't know if it'll be an original story, if it'll try to tell an original story with it, or if it'll adapt from somewhere else. But the screenplay nomination definitely. All of like the production design, set design, costume design, like it'll probably get all of those, and maybe cinematography. So I think I could be looking at 9 or 10 nominations, including a nomination on each of the big 5.
Yeah.
And maybe sneak in with supporting actor or actress, depending on who else is in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think both of these are really good. You probably have the slight edge on this since you brought like a lot of facts and you like locked in both the big acting awards, so I don't know, it's tough, but I'd say you'd probably get this one slightly, although I think I came up with a pretty good pitch. I was gonna go ahead.
I said you came up with a good pitch, but where I think I won this is like I actually looked up the statistics to like prove my point of like this is what the Academy likes to reward.
Yeah.
So when you were going through your pitch, I was like, okay, this is a really good pitch, but I think because of the statistics, I can win this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like back when I started this, like I was gonna do something funny, and then I just kind of stumbled into like what would actually be a good serious pitch. But like if I hadn't thought of anything, I was gonna like do the same thing, but I was gonna make fun of like whitewashing and stuff, and say, so we're gonna have a little black girl played by Jennifer Lawrence, and then
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence in blackface. This is gonna go really badly, but we're gonna do it anyway.
yep.
Yeah, like or could have riffed on the most Oscar bait movie ever that got nominated for Best Picture, Incredibly Loud and Extremely Close, and just do a 9/11 movie.
Oh God. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next category. That was fun though.
Yeah.
That was good. I liked your pitch. So that's a tie and then a win for me, so I'm up 1-0. And our third category is the team, other than the Astros, because we both agreed, and a lot of other people agree, that the Astros are definitely the favorite to win the World Series this year. The team, other than the Astros, that is the most likely to win the World Series, and we added in a couple of addendums to this. One, also pitch a move that your team could make at the trade deadline to improve, and also talk about how they beat the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm a Red Sox fan. I've been a Red Sox fan since I was little, and you're wondering why, as a kid from Kansas, a Red Sox fan, because I loved Pedro, I loved Nomar. The Royals were always uninspiring and never had anyone you could really cheer for, so eventually, like, my love of Pedro and Nomar just turned into loving the Red Sox. So I've been a fan since I was really little, and it's been a good run. I've enjoyed it. So I think the Red Sox, it's just rather homerly, and because they're my favorite team, I had to do it. I think they are the team most likely, other than the Astros, that's most likely to win the World Series, and I think that's because other than the Astros, they are the most complete team. They have a really good lineup from top to bottom. They play really good defense. They have a good pitching rotation. They have an elite bullpen. And the one hole they had was that their lineup didn't have a lot of power in it. They were the worst in the American League in home runs last year, and they addressed that by going out and signing JD Martinez as a free agent on a pretty good contract. JD Martinez missed the first month of the year last year and then hit like 45 home runs anyway. So if you plug him into that lineup, that just completely changes that lineup. Like that opens it up for Benintendi to have a good year. That opens it up for Mookie Betts to have another good year because he has some protection in the lineup. And because JD Martinez can play the outfield, if Jackie Bradley Jr. is struggling, you can shift Mookie to center, put JD Martinez in right, and put Hanley at first base. So it shifts around a lot of what the Red Sox can do. So I really like the way that changes. Or you can put Mitch Moreland at first base and put Hanley back as the DH. Like, it gives the Red Sox a lot of flexibility, and it fixed the one problem with their team, which was that their offense didn't hit a lot of home runs. So since they were as good as they were last year with those offensive deficiencies, by improving the offense and bringing everyone back, I think that's how they beat the Astros. And the move they need to make at the trading deadline is they need to get a right-handed starting pitcher, like a good 3 or 4 starter righty, because Rick Porcello is kind of inconsistent, and all of the best pitchers in the lineup are left-handed, or in the rotation are left-handed.
Okay.
I wanted him to go after Arrieta because I knew that deal that the Phillies signed Arrieta for was available. They just didn't.
Okay. So yeah, I think for my favorite team, the Kansas City Royals, I couldn't really think of any way that they could come within 15 or 20 games of the postseason. So I mean, they did bring in Lucas Duda, and they brought Mike Moustakas back, but I just don't think that's going to be enough to get them over the hump.
No, probably not.
So yeah, the my pick, and this is pretty obvious pick, but I guess I live here, so that helps too. But the Los Angeles Dodgers came within one game of winning the World Series last year. They're a really complete, well-rounded team with a lot of great roster flexibility, a lot of really solid players, good manager, and they also they've been gradually getting better and better in the postseason over the last few years, and I mean that getting that far and being able to say, hey, here's how we did this, here's how we can do it again, is a big deal. And then also what I think the advantage the Dodgers have is I think they have a much easier path to the World Series in the National League than in the American League, because the Red Sox have to go through the Astros, the Indians, and the Yankees, who are probably three of the top four teams in baseball, along with the Dodgers. So that's a huge thing, and I think the way that they win is basically do everything they did last year except trade Darvish to the Cubs so you aren't tempted to start him in Game 7 and you're good. And then the thing that or well, I guess they didn't trade him. It was a free agent signing, or was it a? I can't remember.
It was a free agent signing.
But anyway, so then I don't think they actually need to make a move. I think there are a couple things they could do that would help, like bringing in a elite second baseman would probably be the big one, because Forsyth's defense is good, but his offense isn't that amazing. But you could also just slide Taylor in and then bring in another good outfit. Slide Chris Taylor from center field back to second base and bring in another good outfielder. But I think probably the best thing is just, they already have a really great bullpen, but just to bump it up a little bit more, just bring in another elite reliever. I think probably your best bet would be trade the Royals for Kelvin Herrera, and then you'd have a guy who could come in the 8th or 7th inning, and people would go like, oh shit, we've got an inning of this guy and an inning plus of Kenley Jansen, we're not scoring any runs.
Okay, you said that the Red Sox have a harder path to the World Series than the Dodgers do. That is true because the Red Sox will probably have to play the Indians and then we'll have to play the Astros and the ALCS, but I think if they get to the World Series, they will be better than whatever NL team they are playing. And two, the Dodgers also have a really hard path to World Series. The NL West is going to be fucking loaded this year. The Giants made a couple of good signings, like with McCutchen and a couple of other guys, and they should be healthy again, because what killed the Giants was a ton of freak injuries last year. So if that doesn't happen again, the Giants are going to be good. The Padres have made attempts to be relevant, so the Padres will be kind of surprising. The Rockies have a really good offense, and they'll probably make some noise. And God, who else even in the West? Am I forgetting someone in the West?
What did you say? The Diamondbacks and.
Oh yeah, the Diamondbacks aren't going to be as good because they lost JD Martinez, but the Diamondbacks still have a lot of pieces, so there's no guarantee the Dodgers are even going to win the NL West. They probably will, but it's going to be a fucking slugfest out there. So the Dodgers, they just cruised to the title last year, won 105 games. This year, because of how much better all of the other teams in the NL West have gotten, the Dodgers will probably only win 91 or 92 games. And if the Dodgers don't win the NL West, they could get trolled in the wild card, which, could be funny. The Dodgers have some pitching rotation questions because Kershaw is great. Kershaw is untouchable. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best pitcher in baseball, although Scherzer, Kluber, and Sale are kind of getting there, but I think Kershaw is still better than they are. But their rotation after Kershaw has some red flags. Rich Hill is getting up there in age. Alex Wood, we don't know if Alex Wood's going to be as good as he was again. They lost a couple pieces out of their bullpen, like especially they lost Brandon Morrow, who was their shutdown eighth inning guy, who you just, like you said, we're not scoring any runs off this guy. He was that guy. They lost to him. The Dodgers have a lot of guys who are big regression candidates, like Cody Bellinger is a candidate to have a regression. If he has a regression, how does that affect the offense? You never know what you're getting from Yasiel Puig. He is really frustrating most of the time. Sometimes he's great. Sometimes he's really goddamn frustrating. Who the hell knows what Yasiel Puig you're getting? Chris Taylor is a big regression candidate. And the Dodgers, like, the NL isn't a complete pushover. Like, the Cubs were kind of weird last year, but the Cubs could put it back together, and they'll be tough to go through because even though they lost Arrieta, like, the Cubs still have a good pitching rotation. They still have a great offense, and they still have a lot of good young players. So if the Cubs are back, then the Dodgers will have to go through the Cubs. The Dodgers will have to go through the Nationals, and the Nationals are definitely in this is our chance to win mode, because Harper is probably going to leave at the end of the year, and this is the strongest the Nationals have been. So there's no guarantee that the Dodgers are even going to get to the World Series, let alone have a chance. And yeah, the Red Sox have to play the Yankees in the AL East, but the Yankees, their offense is going to be incredible and will probably break records and will be all great and wonderful. But the Red Sox will do better because the Red Sox have an elite starting rotation, and the Yankees don't. So the Yankees pitching is what will hurt them. And that's why the Red Sox will beat them.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, and there is a big chance that the Red Sox also get forced into the wild card game, because I think the AL East is going to be neck and neck between the Red Sox and the Yankees. And you bring up pitching, like, the Red Sox have a lot of question marks at pitching too, because I mean, we know Sale's going to be elite. That's no problem. David Price has potential to resume being elite, but you never know, because he had such weird injury problems with his elbow last year, and that's not, it's really hard to bet on that. Porcello's had like a couple really good years and then has been like really frustrating other than that. Drew Pomerantz has had a couple good years, but like not enough to say like he's a sure bet. Like there's a lot of potential for Drew Pomerantz frustration. And then Eduardo Rodriguez is like one of those guys who's like, everyone's like, when is this guy going to put it together? We think he has a lot of talent, but like he keeps being kind of disappointing. So you've got kind of the same thing of like one super elite pitcher and a lot of question marks. I think with the Dodgers, like I think that, I think the Red Sox will probably be a little more careful than last year, where Sale like was on a fucking roll through spring and summer, and then started getting a little burnt out later in the season. Like I think they'll be a little more careful with their pitching usage, but I think the Dodgers, because they have Dave Roberts, who is so dedicated to preserving his pitchers that he'll break up a perfect game in the seventh inning, and they have a good deep bullpen, that they've shown that they can take these guys like Hill and Wood, who are a little bit of question marks, but with extreme talent, and preserve them to keep them healthy throughout the season. And then if those guys are healthy going into the postseason, like you're in great shape. And like all these guys, Hill, Wood, Maeda, Ryu, like that, they're the kind of guys that have shown that if you manage them well, they're going to reward you with really good pitching. And then also, if you look at the prospects, like I brought up the Baseball Prospectus top 100 prospects for 2018. The Red Sox currently have one top 100 prospect, whereas the Dodgers have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including 2 of the top 25 with pitcher Walker Buehler and outfielder Alex Verdugo. And then also they have Ross Stripling waiting in the wings, who's a really good pitcher who can step in if one of the starting rotation gets injured.
Who is the Red Sox top 100 prospect? Is it Jacob Grom or whatever? That makes sense.
Let's see.
My guess
Yeah,
would be Jacob Groom.
Yeah, Jay Groom. Yeah. So yeah, like, and he's number 78. But yeah, I think and then also like what's really nice about and as far as the lineup, like I think, um, you know, you've got Bellinger, Turner, and Seager as kind of your core guys, and I think Chris Taylor's a great guy to have play because he can play anywhere and fill in for pretty much anybody. And then uh, I think Corey Seager, like last year, didn't fully live up to his potential, and Turner missed some time. So I think, even if you did have some regression from guys like Puig, like I think Seager and Turner can actually do better than they did last year. And then another thing that I want to mention is, according to MLB Network, the Dodgers have 2 of the top 10 catchers in baseball right now in Yasmani Grandal and Austin Barnes. They're the only team that can claim that on that list, because Grandal, you've got a bit of power, Barnes, you got a bit of speed and positional flexibility because he actually played quite a bit of second base last year, which is kind of funny. And then they both are really good pitch receivers, so that helps a lot too with getting the most out of their pitching staff.
Okay, your catcher point is kind of bullshit because catcher is kind of a black hole of offense right now. And if you have a good enough offense, you don't necessarily need a good catcher. And Yasmani Grandal isn't going to be a huge game changer when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. The Red Sox also have a good catcher in Christian Vasquez, who I hope they play him most of the season this year because I like what he does behind the plate, and I like that his offense is good enough that you don't mind having him in the lineup, and he's good behind the plate, so I hope he plays all year and they don't really spell him with other people. I think the Red Sox have a more... I'm trying to think if I want to word this. I think I trust the Red Sox bullpen a little bit more than I trust the Dodgers bullpen because, yes, Kenley Jansen is great, and you're right, Dave Roberts is good at preserving his starting pitchers, but he's shown that he's willing to let Kenley Jansen throw a lot of pitches. So I don't know how much wear and tear we're going to see on Kenley Jansen this year because of borderline poor management from Dave Roberts. It's worked out for him, but I think he works Jansen too much, and for as good as Roberts is at managing his starters, he seems kind of inconsistent at managing his bullpen. And I think the biggest point I want to make is with the moves that the Red Sox made in the offseason, they made the team better, and they fixed the weaknesses that they had. And that's why I think the one move they need to make at the deadline is to acquire the good right-handed starting pitcher so that if Porcello is having a good year again, which you're right, Porcello is a red flag, but Porcello, who knows what you're getting from Porcello, but if he's like the 4th pitcher and he's kind of frustrating, then you can live with that. But when you're running him out as your 2nd pitcher to split the 2 lefties at the top of the rotation, that's a lot more frustrating. So the Red Sox need to get a good right-handed starting pitcher because that's the only weakness they have left. I think the Dodgers have more weaknesses than you're letting on, and they also don't really have that diverse of a starting rotation because isn't Alex Wood also left-handed? I'm pretty sure Wood
he's left.
and Rich Hill and Kershaw are all lefties, so they probably also need to acquire a right-handed starting pitcher. I think the Dodgers' road to the playoffs in the NL, having to face a team like the Nationals that has really elite starting pitching, and having to face the Giants, who have shown to be really tough outs in the playoffs, and that's how they've made these ridiculous runs. They're going to face a really tough division that is going to be good top to bottom. So, with the AL East, the Red Sox are going to be good and the Yankees are going to be good. I think the Red Sox had the advantage on the Yankees for having better starting pitching and a better bullpen, but they only have one other team to really contend with, whereas the Dodgers, the NL West is really good top to bottom next year, and there is a good chance that the Padres will finish last in the NL West with 75 or 76 wins, which that doesn't seem like that many, but considering the competition they'll be playing against, that will be quite a lot. So the Dodgers could get beat up during the regular season playing in that super tough division where every divisional game they play, they're playing a team that could be doing well in one of the weaker divisions. I personally see more red flags with the Dodgers than I do with the Red Sox. I don't know if that's just my homer goggles tinting my opinion, and I don't really have anything else to say, so I will have that be my closing argument.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, with the Red Sox, I think their offense looks amazing. I think I see them as a team that has one lights out pitcher and then a bunch of other guys who are really vulnerable, and that doesn't play as well in a long postseason series. Whereas I think the Dodgers are the kind of team that could really cobble together like everything they need to get through a 7-game series pitching wise. And then I think as far as like the NL West, I think the Giants are overrated. I think they're old and have no depth, so if anyone gets injured again, they're in really bad shape. I think the Rockies just don't have the even as many promising young guys as they have. I don't think their pitching is good enough to hold up. I think the Diamondbacks are a bit of a threat, but even if the Dodgers, I think the Dodgers are still the favorites to win that division, and I don't think they'll even have to go through the Nationals because one of those two teams is going to be the top team in the NL, and the other team's going to be the second, and so it just depends. Do the Dodgers face the Cubs or do they face the wild card? The Nationals are guaranteed to lose in the first round because they're so bad in the first round that they had to bring camels to spring training to get over the hump, and then I don't think I think that the Dodgers have the will and the composition to say, hey, we were this close last year. We know what it takes to do it again, and I think the only other team in the NL that can say that is the Cubs, and I don't think they're as strong as all around as the Dodgers.
Okay, well, I would say the one thing you could have said that would have probably knocked me out, I would have had to concede the point. And the biggest red flag that the Red Sox have is their rookie manager. And you never brought that up, and that would have been what would have knocked me out because I wouldn't have been able to respond to that. So I think you made good points, but I don't think I quite want to concede that because that is the definite killer point you could have made, and you didn't make it. So I'm not sure. Because I think we were pretty equal on a lot of things, and that could have really decided it.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know. This is close. What do you think? I think if you had brought up that the Red Sox have a first-year manager, I would have just had to concede the fight right there because that is the biggest red flag of all. But because that didn't get brought up, I think this is pretty close.
Yeah. It's I like my argument better, but then again, I was the one making my argument. I don't think it's clear enough that I can just say, oh, it was a clear win for either side. So yeah.
Okay, since you're leaning toward giving me the first point, I'll lean toward giving you this point, but I really think if you had brought up Alex Cora, I would not have been able to counter that because there's no way to say anything well, yeah, but it's better than John Farrell because John Farrell was terrible at managing the pitching rotation last year. Well, yeah, but Alex Cora's never managed a major league team at all, so you have no idea what he's going to be.
Yeah.
So, I'll lean toward giving it to you, but I think that could go either way.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I was thinking of this argument, I thought, oh, fuck. I just realized when I'm looking at all of these red flags that the Dodgers have, and I think the Nationals are probably the most likely team to win the NL, but they're the Nationals. They'll choke. They always do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're
when I was
probably the most talented team, but yeah, I just don't trust them in the playoffs at all either.
Yeah, the Nationals are I'm gonna pour one out for Virginia's NCAA tournament this year. The Nationals are the Virginia of baseball. You cannot trust them in the playoffs at all.
Yep.
Okay, so the fourth argument is pitch the next historical Total War game. The reason we wanted to do this is because both of us really like Total War. We played a lot, and the next two Total War games that are coming out are Total War Saga Thrones of Britannia, which looks decent, and then Total War 3 Kingdoms, which looks amazing, so I'm really looking forward to that one. But we wanted to go the next historical Total War game after Total War 3 Kingdoms because Total War had gone away from historical for the last couple of games. It had gone for Warhammer 1 and 2. So, our argument is pitch the next historical Total War game, and I believe you're pitching Total War The Wild West, and I'm pitching Total War America 1754 to 1865.
Okay. So, yeah, I was thinking, yeah, what would be a good Total War game that would have a mix of some interesting new types of factions that we haven't seen as much in other Total War games, and would have an interesting area and time period to play with that we haven't really seen much from the Total War, and then would also be an appealing thing to fans. So I'm pitching Total War Wild West, and the setting for this is I'm looking at basically the 19th century of the U.S. and everything west of the Mississippi. The main factions I see are the United States, the various Native American tribes, such as, I mean, you could have as many as you want, but like, Sioux, Apache, Comanche, Kiowa, Blackfoot, however many you want, you could fit in there and make reasonable. And the Spanish or Mexico, and the British up in Canada, and then I'd say start around the time of the Louisiana Purchase. So you have the eastern part of the map is the United States, and so you'd have some interesting elements with the different factions, and I think you could have some different goals for gameplay. Like you could have the main thing for the United States would be a goal of not just capturing a certain amount of territory, but also like settling and building up a certain amount of farmland and towns, and completing the transcontinental railway, and then the various locations on the map would be various forts and Native American settlements. You could have some interesting elements with like you'd have the Mexican possessions in the south, and then you could have like sometime during the middle of the time period have a Mormon state rise in Utah. That could be pretty interesting. You could have various outlaw gangs do kind of like the slave rebellions do in Rome Total War. And then I think also like with the Native American factions, because they would be at such a disadvantage in terms of like the firepower and structure of the American and British and Mexican armies, that you would have some other cool, neat advantages to counteract that, like make stealth and ambushes like have a lot better effects, and have some interesting and make the terrain could be a really interesting factor as well, and the Native American units would progress from a lot of axemen and horse archer type things to eventually acquiring guns and adopting them into the various units. So I think it would be, and then also you could have some different dynamics, like if you play as a Native American tribe, you could have you could adjust the settings, so like sometimes it'd be like you just have to do everything as that one tribe, or you could have more of a collaborative thing, like where you could confederate with various tribes to repulse the United States. So that could be interesting too. So those are some of the ideas I had, but I'll let you give your pitch now.
Okay, so my pitch, and this is a really wide-scoped game, and that is America from 1754 to 1865. The reason I chose the years I chose is because that's the beginning of the French and Indian War to the end of the American Civil War. And the reason I want to have that time scope is because this game isn't necessarily going to have a big grand campaign. Like, I tried to think of how to make that work, and I couldn't really make that work. Something I came up with was maybe you start as one of the 13 colonies, and then you try to conquer the rest of the map, but that one doesn't really work. The focus of this game is going to be you'll have good campaigns for all of the major wars. So you'll have an interesting French and Indian War campaign where you can play as the British, you could play as one of the Indian factions, you could play as the French, you could play as the colonies. So you'd have that as a campaign. You'd have the American Revolution, where they tried to do an American Revolution and Empire Total War. It didn't really work because it was just a side part of the game. They didn't really focus on it. But if the American Revolution campaign was one of the main campaigns of the game, you could go really in depth with that, because you could have the colonies, the British, the French. Like, you'd have a lot of interesting factions you could use. You could have the War of 1812 as another one of the campaigns. But the jewel of this game would be the Civil War, because something we're really missing with the Civil War, and you could also have the various Indian Wars like you already discussed, maybe something like that with your Wild West idea. The Civil War, what is missing right now is a game that has a really interesting, like, dynamic Civil War campaign, because the best game that's come out recently, in my opinion, is Ultimate General Civil War, and that has a good campaign, but that campaign is you fight from battle to battle, and yes, the dynamic aspect is of how well you do in each battle determines how big the enemy army is in the next battle, which is really cool and everything, but there is no, like, dynamic land-changing hands aspect. It's you play through the battles, and then you play to the end, and that's it. It would be really interesting to have, like, a Civil War campaign where you had, like, the shifting of the land, like a regular Total War map. I think we need that, and they could do that really well. You also have the one of the funner things in a Total War game, especially in Napoleon Total War, is the historical battles, and you could have a lot of those in this game. Like, you could have most of the main battles of the Civil War, you could have the main battles of the Revolution, you could have a couple battles from the War of 1812. Like, you open yourself up to all of this really cool stuff that you could do, and you take just this one era of time and you make the definitive game about that era of time and all of the definitive campaigns about all of those various wars. It would be really big, and it would take them a couple of years to do it, but if they put the time into it, this could be the best Total War game ever released.
Yeah, I don't know. The way this looks with your campaign, with your game, is like there's too much. It's just way too much. Like, it's like the dessert spaghetti from Elf, where he just puts, like, all this candy and syrup and shit on there to the point where, like, no one in their right mind would eat it and think it was good. And like, I just don't think you can do all of the various elements of your game justice. I mean, that's part of the main reason that Empire Total War wasn't...
You can if you take the time. If they take the time, they can do
it. The main reason Empire Total War wasn't as good was because the gameplay wasn't as good, but then also there's just too much random shit going on, as opposed to, like, a more focused game like Napoleon or Rome. But the big thing that you're doing is you're really fucking up the marketing on this, because if someone sees a game that says Total War America 1750 whatever to 1865, that's not nearly as exciting as Total War Revolution or Total War Civil War. Like, those are concepts that people who, that really speak to people's mind, and you're also missing an opportunity to cash in with like two or three different games by bundling them all into one, and you could flesh out the games a lot more, having them be individual things. And so you're basically just saying, I want to do all this shit at once, when it would make a lot more sense from a perspective of marketing, getting people interested in it, and then doing each separate thing justice to release them as separate games.
Okay, yeah, I give up. I mean, the reason I want to do all these things at once is because I think you could do it all at once, and it would be better than if they released one per year with all the typical bullshit Total War bugs and just bled the money out of people. So I would rather them release like $100 game that they spent 3 or 4 years on that has all of these things done really well in it, than release a $60 French and Indian Total War game, and then a $60 Total War Revolution game, and then a $60 War of 1812 game, and then a $60 Civil War game, and then a $60 the various Indian Wars game. Because that kind of shit is what the community absolutely hates, when they're like, oh yeah, we're going to release like 60% of the game and then bleed you dry with DLC. Because that's the problem with your game, is because I guarantee you how they would release that is, like, the game would come with, you can play as the US, you want to play as the British, that's $5. You want to play as the French, that's $5. You want to play as each Indian tribe, that's $6 for this culture pack, $6 for that culture pack, $7 if you want to see them fucking bleed. Like, I don't want to get bled to fucking death by Steam and by the Creative Assembly. I would rather them release a game that has a ton of shit that I paid like $100 for, straight up, and it had everything that I wanted in it, than get bled to fucking death by DLC. And your game would allow them to bleed us to fucking death with DLC. So yes, I will admit that I lost this argument, but I had to get that out there.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like, from a fan perspective, yours would be like a wet dream for someone who's a diehard fan of the franchise and a history nerd. But yeah, I just don't trust them to do it justice to actually make it work the way that it would need to be a good game. For the very reasons you listed of why you want them to do it that way.
Those bastards.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, on a Total War Wild West game, you'd be able to play like 2 of the factions, and then all of the other ones you'd have to pay to unlock. Because that's just how they fucking do it. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why you do, like, man, wait until you get into the game and then buy the Humble Bundle.
Exactly. Like, oh hey, Total War Rome. Yeah, like So that's funny. I got the only Total War games we paid full price for were, we bought Empire and Shogun at the same time at Walmart one time. Kind of stupidly. You put Shogun on your computer, I put Empire on my computer. We didn't realize we couldn't whore out the disc more than once, so that kind of fucked us. But then I bought Napoleon, and you bought Napoleon, and we paid full price for Napoleon and the Napoleon DLC, which was okay because Napoleon is only like $20 anyway. Then how I got Rome 2 was I got it on a sale of like 70% off, or like 70 or 80% off, so I only paid like $15 for it, because fucking Rome 2 is still $60. So, and then I picked up all of the DLC on sales, so if you bought Rome 2 by itself and all the DLC, it's probably like $150, and I probably paid like maybe 60 total, because I got the game and all of the DLC on sale. Like, the most expensive DLC I paid for were the 2 most recent ones, because I just bought them at the 10% off pre-order price instead of waiting for them to go like 50% off. So with the game I would want, it would just be like, okay, we're going to charge you up front, but we're going to give you everything, as opposed to, we're going to fucking bleed you dry for DLC, because bleeding you dry for DLC... Oh yeah, in your game, they'd also bleed you dry for like 10 or 15 unit packs. So by the end of it, your game would be like, oh yeah, I paid $60 for 70% of a game, and then I paid another $150 to unlock the other 30%, because that's just what they do. Whereas with my game, they'd spend like 5 years on it, and it would just all be there, and it'd cost like $100 up front, and you'd know exactly what you were getting.
And
I would rather have that. I know it's not likely, and I knew I was going to lose this argument, but I just really wanted to bitch about how much I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 1-1 or 2-2 if both of the... Well, it's tied regardless, so it's going to come down to the last argument. So fuck it might as well just be 2-2 and tied regardless.
Yeah, exactly. So, this will be like the title fight between Dan and Max Landis coming down to the Milk Duds versus M&M's.
Okay, so your pick is still what it was, right? You didn't change it?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we have the trashiest song since 1990. Now, this song I've picked, I did not know this was a thing, but it comes up on the radio, because I used to live in Manhattan, and they have local rock radio station as K-Rock, which plays a lot of good stuff, so, you know, I'm okay with it, but they play some shit sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things. And this song is, most of you probably never heard of this, and thank God you haven't, but you have now. It's Porn Star Dancing by My Darkest Days. And just listen to the lyrics of this song, okay? It is horrible. I'm just going to read you. I'll only read the chorus once, but I'm going to read you all of the verses and the chorus of Porn Star Dancing. And if the rest of your soul hasn't died by the end of it, you're a better man than I.
And this is going to take a while, because there's like quite a few lyrics here.
Yeah, it's probably going to take like a good 5 minutes. Alright. Po, 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 porn star dancing. Kelly won't kiss my friend Cassandra. Jessica won't play ball. Mandy won't share her friend Miranda. Does anybody live at all? Amanda won't leave me empty-handed. Got her number from a bathroom stall. Brandy just got way too much baggage, and that shit just gets old. But I got a girl who can put on a show. The dollar decides how far you can go. Okay, that is the first verse. Here is the chorus. She wraps those hands around that pole. She licks those lips, and off we go. She takes it off nice and slow, because that's porn star dancing. She don't play nice, she makes me beg. She drops that dress around her legs, and I'm sitting right by the stage for this porn star dancing. He's talking about a fucking stripper, and it's just so blatantly like, I go to strip clubs and I'm overly sexualized, and I'm not even trying to be creative here. I'm just masturbating about strip clubs because that's what I do, because I'm a trashy rock star. So, moving on. Your body's lighting up the room. I want a naughty girl like you. There's nothing hotter than porn star dancing, I believe. Stacy's gonna save her. This is the next This is the next verse. Stacy's gonna save herself for marriage, but that's just not my style. She's got a pair that's nice to stare at, but I want girls gone wild. Okay, soak that in for a little bit. And then the chorus repeats. Here is the next verse. Okay, this is like kind of different from the other one. Your body's lighting up the room. I want a naughty girl like you. Let's throw a party just for you. You know those normal girls won't do. They won't do. I need a girl that's kind of frisky, drinking with the fellas, taking shots and getting tipsy. We all want to party because she's sexy as hell, and if I ever get in trouble, bailing me out of jail, because she's a stone cold stunner, hotter than the summer. When she step up into the club, every man and woman want her. She makes me want to get a stripper pole up in my home because of the porn star dancing got me in the zone. She wraps those hands around that pole. She licks those lips, and off we go. She takes it off nice and slow because that's porn star dancing. She don't play nice. She makes me beg. She drops the dress around her legs, and I'm sitting right by the stage for this porn star dancing. The worst part about this song isn't just the lyrics. It's not just the lyrics. It's that the music of this song is catchy enough that the first time you hear it, you feel yourself getting kind of into it, like, oh yeah, this is like kind of a catchy hook. And the lyrics, you don't listen to the lyrics because you're caught up by the catchiness of the hook. And then the second time, when you hear the lyrics, you're like, oh my god! How the hell did this actually, like, catch me the first time? You feel really bad about yourself. You feel really ineffectual about yourself. You start questioning your entire life and all of your decisions. And you say, God, do I have bad taste? Am I a loser? Like, what the fuck just happened to me? And to add to the trashiness of this, Chad Kroeger was involved in the making of this song. So if you have a connection to Nickelback, what the fuck are you doing with your lives? Like, this is just horrible. It is horrible. This was actually a thing. This was like a hit on rock radio charts. The world is dead. There is no God. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, well, yeah, that's really bad. I'm kind of ashamed of you for admitting that you actually like thought it was catchy the first time around, because
it's one of those things, though. It's just the hook, man.
Well,
the hook of that song. It's just, it has all of that crappy, cringy mid 2000s rock hooks that if you're not totally prepared to immediately recognize what it is and reject it, you don't realize just how bad it is right away. That's why it's so trashy, because it makes you feel really bad about yourself for not immediately recognizing just how trashy it is. Even though it is exactly everything it says on the tin, it tricks you the first time. It tricks you. And then because it tricks you, and because it makes you feel so bad about yourself, and I'm talking from personal experience, by the way, if that wasn't obvious,
yeah.
It makes you feel so bad about yourself, it's just horrible. It's bad. I still feel bad about myself for this.
Okay, well, yeah, and in your defense, there's like probably a 99% chance they stole that hook from someone else.
Probably.
Because it sounds really familiar, even though I didn't know the song. But yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna.
It's kind of an earworm. It's just one of those earwormy things that it just gets in your head, and you're like, oh, this is familiar. Okay, I'm about to hear something that's probably decent. Oh God, no!
Well, yeah, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to beat that, because like, but I'm still gonna talk about how bad my song is anyway, because like, you know, with the last argument we did, we both had songs that we were personally affronted by because they were on radio that we listened to, and they haunted us and made us feel terrible about life and the world. Whereas this one, like, you had a specific song that was driving you crazy, whereas, like, I mostly either listen to classic rock radio or my own blues music, and don't really listen to as much modern radio because there isn't as much stuff that I'd want to listen to, so I don't get ambushed by the more recent trashy shit. But still, I want to give,
fair enough.
Since you availed us with a rendition of the porn star dancing lyrics, I would like to give a dramatic reading of the lyrics to Nookie by Limp Bizkit. And, you know, while yours was more of like a shitty, like, you know, sniff some glue and get drunk and fuck around on GarageBand and anyone could do this hard rock song, mine is like the you huffed an entire bottle of paint thinner rap rock from 1998 or 99 that is Limp Bizkit.
I'm gonna check and see if Kentucky won while you're doing this.
Okay, I think they were up by like 15 when I checked it when you went to the bathroom, but yeah, so because like with my darkest days,
yeah, they won by 20.
Okay. Oh. Uh, so with My Darkest Days and with anything that has anything to do with Chad Kroeger, like, it's just like, I think the reason people hate Nickelback and bands like them so much is the same reason they hate like Guy Fieri of like they just look and they're like, those people have a really cool job that I want, but they're so stupid and lazy, and I could do so much better than them. Why do they have that? Whereas like with Limp Bizkit, they were like into this shit. Like they thought they were doing something really cool. Like I don't know,
Break stuff.
yeah, like Fred, and it's so funny. Like the Limp Bizkit is such a lame name. Fred Durst's last name sounds like an insult, and and they also named an album Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, yeah. Okay, are you gonna get to the lyrics?
So yeah, but anyway, so the Nookie came from their I believe it was their second album called Significant Other, and so imagine like this being like a really aggressive rap rock instead of just some guy talking in his apartment. I came into this world as a reject. Look into these eyes, then you'll see the size of these flames. Dwelling on the past, it's burning up my brain. Everyone that burns has to learn from the pain. Hey, I think about the day my girlie ran away with my pay. When fellas come to play, know she stuck with my homies that she fucked, and I'm just a sucker with a lump in my throat. Hey, like a chump, should I be feeling bad? No. Should I be feeling good? No. It's kinda sad, I'm the laughingstock of the neighborhood. You would think that I'd be moving on, but I'm a sucker, like I said. Fucked up in the head, not. Maybe she just made a mistake. I should give her a break. My heart will ache either way. Hey, what the hell? What you want me to say? I won't lie. I can't deny. I did it all for the nookie. Come on, the nookie. Come on. So you can take that cookie and stick it up your yeah. Stick it up your yeah. Stick it up your yeah. I, and then they repeat that chorus. Why did it take so long? Why did I wait so long? Huh? To figure it out. But I did it, and I'm the only one underneath the sun who didn't get it. I can't believe that I can be deceived, but my so-called girl, but in reality, had hidden agenda. She put my tender heart in a blender, and still I surrendered like a chump. Then they repeat the chorus of I did it all for the nookie, come on, the nookie, come on, so you can take that cookie and stick it up your ass, stick it up your ass, stick it up your ass. I mean, just poetry. I'm only human. It's so easy for your friends to give you their advice. They tell you to let it go, but it's easier said than done. I appreciate it, I do, but just leave me alone, leave me alone, just leave me alone, just leave me alone. Ain't nothing gonna change if you can go away. I'm just gonna stay here and always be the same. Then they repeat those two lines like 3 times, and then one more chorus. So, or two more choruses. So yeah, I mean, it's like, you're going between like song that's like really trashy and basic and song that's like really trashy and in your face about it. Um, like yeah, I would argue harder for mine, but it's just hard to top the like the indignity of being ambushed by that song repeatedly on K Rock. So
and,
I,
and and also the indignity of it just has that like Nookie. How I was going to argue against it is Nookie is so aggressively bad you realize it right away. The worst trashy songs, in my opinion, are the ones that trick you the first time into thinking that they're not trashy. You know Nookie is trashy immediately because the music just sounds so trashy and it doesn't have some kind of little earwormy hook that will draw you in and suck away your soul and make you question everything about your life.
yeah, well, I mean, my argument would have been more of like, well, like Porn Star Dancing is just such a bland song that you can just like basically ignore it, whereas Nokia is like so in your face and you can't avoid it, and just the music is so bad it makes you dumber listening to it. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. And of course, it's interesting too. There's like two versions of Porn Star Dancing. There's like a version with like a rap break with Ludacris, and then there's a rock version that has Zach Wilde, who's actually a really good guitarist on it, which is like, what are you doing? Why are you associating yourself with this shit? And then also,
Because that's what people like that do.
yeah, and then also I'd like to point out a couple other things I found in my research. One is that My Darkest Days also has a song called Casual Sex that's maybe even trashier than this one.
Oh, Jesus.
And then the other thing is, like, I mentioned the Limp Bizkit album Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water. It's like, that is just the dumbest sounding name of the album, and I think it's like a really, really, really ugly sex euphemism.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Now, I asked Trevor about this and what his pick for this would have been, and he brought up something that would have been really so. Are you conceding that I won that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take it. That episode could have gone either way, but I'll take it. All right. So Trevor's pick for this, and when I read the lyrics to this, I said, "Oh God, if I would have thought about that, I probably would have picked that." That is "Crazy Bitch" by Buckcherry, and I will give it now a soulful rendition. I will end the episode with the lyrics of "Crazy Bitch" by Buckcherry, and then I probably need to get out for my walk. So if one has any kind of post-mortem discussion, I'll call you after I get my shoes on. Here are the lyrics to "Crazy Bitch." Break me down, you got a lovely face, we're going to your place, and now you got to freak me out, screaming so loud, getting fucking laid. So, poetry.
Yeah.
You want me to stay, but I make you my way. Hey, you're a crazy bitch, but you fuck so good, I'm on top of it. When I dream, I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're a crazy bitch, but you fuck so good, I'm on top of it. When I dream, I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Now I won't repeat the chorus again. Take it off, the paper is your game. You jump in bed with fame. Another one night paid in full. You're so fine, it won't be a loss. Cashing in the rocks just to get you face to face. So, here, later. Get the video, fuck you so good. Get the video, fuck you so good. Crazy bitch, crazy bitch, crazy bitch. Then repeats the chorus twice. Baby girl, you want it all. To be a star, you'll have to go down. Take it off. No need to talk. You're crazy, but I like the way you fuck me. Repeat the chorus twice and end with, you're crazy, but I like the way you fuck me. So that is pretty aggressively bad.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I listened to that one too, and it's like I could see you getting sucked into that one a little bit too, because the music actually is decent, but yeah, those lyrics are really in your face bad. So I think you'd realize it. But yeah, I think the reason Porn Star Dancing is so bad is because it's the kind of thing where it's like, this music actually isn't very good, but it's just good enough that you can stand to that you can kind of get into it a little bit.
It's good enough that your brain just turns off and doesn't really. It's like it's bad candy that's just good enough that you're happy that you're getting sugar, and you don't realize that it's shitty tasting chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. Of oh, this is the person that got the really cheap shit for Halloween, but I don't care because I'm a little kid and I like candy.
Yeah. It's just sugary enough that you don't realize how bad it is until you're not really craving the sugar at the time.
Yeah, but the part about the part about Porn Star Dancing that really went over the top, because with Nookie, the choruses, what makes them so trashy is just that rap rock is inherently trashy, but it's only really the chorus that's that trashy
really
in the
bad.
lyrics. Whereas with Porn Star Dancing, it's you've got she wraps those hands around that pole, which of course we're talking about a stripper pole, but he's probably also thinking a dick as well. But the that whole thing, it's like that's trashy, but it's pretty straightforward. But the whole the verse of Stacy's gonna save herself for marriage, but that's just not my style. She's got a pair that's nice to stare at, but I want Girls Gone Wild. It's like I forgot that verse, and when you read that again, I was like, if I'm arguing for a song that this verse is less trashy than another song, it's like, what am I doing? It's like it's the same feeling you felt when I read that verse from Fat Bottom Girls of like what are you doing here? This is like the. It's like it's fine if you're just talking about sex in a way that's kind of rude and crude, but like to go to the point where you're like, no, we're gonna take it to the point where it's just like makes you feel bad about yourself for even listening to it. Like,
Okay, well, I think that was a good podcast. We're gonna call the episode there.
all right.
Okay. I need to put my shoes on and get out for a walk, but if you want to do some bullshit post-mortem, I could call in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Alright, so, yeah. So that is the end of the podcast. Goodbye to anyone who might listen to this.
Yeah.
And hi, Jason, because I know you'll listen to it.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Especially thanks, Jason, because he'll probably be the